Before you start, though, I do want to ask, because Johnny mentioned that his girlfriend doesn't listen to this.
Okay.
Which is probably great. Actually, I had a similar conversation where my girlfriend was like, oh, what did you guys talk about this week? And I was like, why don't you just listen to it? And she's like, no. I was just curious if your wife listens to this.
No! And here's the thing. I know. I assumed that she did.
So that's 0 for 3.
Because she claims that she watches Renegade Cut. But no, my wife does not listen to Word Funk at all. I can't remember how this came up, but like a few weeks ago, I said, this week when we were talking about blah, well, and I started like going into something else, and she's like, all right, and I just looked at her like, you didn't listen to Word Funk this week. And then it came out that she doesn't listen at all. And I find this unforgivable. We are married because Heart of Gaming existed, so that's how she learned who I am. And so,
that says more about her taste than I think is probably comfortable discussing right now.
Fair enough. But no, the point is, like, the fact that I do the thing I do is why we are together. So, I find that not listening to my stupid podcast is a betrayal, and, but no, she does not listen, at all.
I watch every episode of Renegade Cut that's on a thing I've seen.
Okay.
If I haven't seen it yet, then I wait till I watch it.
No,
so
that just makes sense.
So there's like a half of them I haven't seen, but I try to keep up.
No, that's fine. That's acceptable.
Johnny, you haven't released a video in years, Johnny.
No.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Word Funk. I am Leon Thomas. I am joined by Johnny Maloney and Austin Yorsky.
An immersion circulator is a water temperature regulator. It clips onto the side of like any deep vessel that has liquid in it, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And then you set a temperature for it to maintain that liquid. In this case, it will, of course, be water. And it maintains that temperature, the model that I have, within a degree of 0.07 degrees. So it's like, okay, that's it. Well, you see, the thing is the reason why you want water, because it's like, it's not like I need my tea at exactly this temperature, but I need it to be maintained at this temperature for like 24 hours before I pour it. No, it's got nothing to do with that. It is essentially to try to create a more temperature-regulated oven. I'm dead serious. See, the goal of having a regulated temperature bath is you put what you want to cook, say a steak, an egg, steak and eggs, although not in the same receptacle, in a bag, and then you put that bag in the water. Because it's like, you know how when you get your meat thermometer out and you stick it in your meat? I'm talking literally here. Everybody stay with me.
I know.
And then it's like, you don't want to eat that pork until it gets to 160 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that, right?
I like that your story assumes my level of, like, culinary skill, because, Johnny, let me tell you, one time I tried to make pancakes, and it turned into bread. I still don't know how I managed that, but was
it good bread?
It was fine. Okay. It just wasn't what I set out to make.
All right, that's okay. You've got to accept happy accidents. But the reason why you stick your meat thermometer in there, your meat thermometer in there, is that when meat reaches a certain temperature, that's when it achieves like its level of doneness, right? Mm-hmm. So according to how you like your meat, you take something that you're going to eat. So edible meat. Because the water just stays. It's like, you like your steak rare? Okay, fuck it, 58 degrees.
There's a family of raccoons that live outside my apartment, and they're just the cutest. Hence me saying, like, the variability of the edibility of meat, like, changes, right? Okay.
I've never had raccoon, but I've had some weird shit. Have we talked about I feel like we've talked about this before.
You can leave this meat in this water bath for, like, days. For, like, 70 hours. And it's just chilling at, like, rare. You can be like, fucking steak in the water bath. You go, I'll see you on Sunday.
Are we just going to make this Word Funk Master Chef edition, or what?
I don't know any
any of the words Johnny just said. Like, all of it, I don't understand what's going on. I heard a lot of science stuff.
I'm really excited about being a snob in the kitchen now, too.
Austin, did you get my Christmas/birthday present?
I did, and I was really terrified, but then I opened it up, and then I was like, oh no, does this mean we're starting a book club?
No, it's partly a thoughtful gift and partly a gag gift.
Does that mean that you sent me a book, too?
No, I sent you something else.
Oh,
okay.
Surprising.
Everyone has a different present. I sent out 5 presents to my friends.
And we're keeping all of this in because that was fascinating food talk. That
yeah.
was
Clearly.
It's a really good steak you guys don't even know.
Johnny, my girlfriend makes fun of me because sometimes I just eat meat raw. Like, just
for you. That's a thing.
I am trailer trash as fuck. Like, literally.
Like, Austin, all you gotta do is throw, like, an egg on top and be like, it's steak tartare, bitch. Don't call your girlfriend bitch, though. That's kind of...
No, never do that. Never do that.
Okay, so Leon sent me a Stephen King novel, actually a new one, called Revival, which appears to be like a modern Frankenstein kind of take. I've only read the first chapter.
So is it about an aging Massachusetts location horror writer whose writing starts to become more and more accepted as popular culture and isn't really vital until 3 knobheads on the internet start talking about him, and then suddenly there's a revival in interest in his books? Because that would genuinely freak me the fuck out.
You joke, Johnny, but you know that Stephen King wrote himself into some of his books as a character, right?
Yes, I do know that.
Okay. I can never keep track of which books you guys have read, but in The Dark Tower, the characters go from one alternate dimension into ours and then run into Stephen King. And he's like, hello, my character. It's the weirdest shit ever.
Also, yes. I picked out your present by going... I had almost everyone's present, like, listed on this big list, and I was all excited because I felt like I was going to win Christmas this year. And I was like, I should get Austin a book while I'm here. He reads. Maybe something about video games. And then as soon as I walked in, there was a big Stephen King display, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to do this. Okay, we need to talk about what happened with Sony, and not just the Sony hack, because we discussed that already. We need to talk about the interview. So if you're listening to this, you probably already know, because it's the only thing anyone ever is talking about at all on my Twitter timeline. So I assume
retroactively, it went backwards in time and erased all other tweets.
Yeah. What happened is this. Sony made a movie starring Seth Rogen and James Franco, in which they play people who go to North Korea to interview Kim Jong-un. And I guess the American government says, while you're there, murder him. They sort of agree to do it, and then stuff happens. And it's a comedy. And, it had like a mild amount of buzz. It was gonna be released around Christmas, and that was
on Christmas. On Christmas Day, very specifically.
Okay, on Christmas. Yeah, I was actually, my wife and I were planning to basically go see the interview and Into the Woods on the same day and just spend our whole day at the movie theater, because Christmas. So
Jesus would want it that way, Leo.
Yeah, that's how I feel. So basically, Sony was getting a little heat from this from North Korea because they think that, our companies are like state-run as well, and that this is like an attack on their country, when in reality it's just Seth Rogen and James Franco being dorks.
North Korea, infamous for their nuanced sense of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be serious here. If in North Korea you were allowed to make fun of Kim Jong-un's haircut, they'd have like total anarchy.
No one would get anything done.
Like overnight, they would have television channels spring up dedicated solely to making fun of that man's haircut.
It's like Pat Riley's hair, but with like shaved on the sides and all fucked up.
So, Leon.
Oh yeah. So yeah, then basically what happened was Sony got hacked a little while ago, and we talked about that before. And then the group, which its name escapes me, what it calls itself, the something peace group.
Guardians of Peace.
Guardians of Peace. They are guarding all the peace. They didn't seem that peaceful anymore. They made a press release of sorts that said, now we are going to turn your country into like a giant 9/11 at the movie theater if you release this movie. Which makes the whole, hey, this is just some underground hacker thing,
to be fair, it was a little more. To be fair, it was a little more implicit than that. Like, it was a little bit more like, oh, well, any movie theaters that are showing the interview, we can't guarantee you won't get 9/11.
Yeah, I don't think it was that subtle. The point is that
for North Korea, apparently that is pretty subtle. I was reading an article where like their diplomatic talks routinely involve threatening to nuke other countries. Like for them, just implying something is like actually pretty chill.
Yeah, that's pretty pulled back. That's like maybe putting a part in Kim Jong-un's hair, like letting it coast off to the side a little bit. This little jaunty curl that says, "Hey, I'm all about the nukes, but let's have some drinks first."
Okay. Well, the thing is, it's widely speculated that the Guardians of Peace is really just North Korea genuinely screwing with a big company. And by the way, this company, they're not screwing with America, because Sony is a Japanese company that is also in America, and it is all over the world, really. So they're just screwing with a gigantic company because the American arm of Sony is, it's in Hollywood and it's making the interview. So basically, either North Korea is screwing with Sony or someone is screwing with Sony, but they have screwed Sony and they have screwed us, and they've effectively done it because Sony has pulled the interview. It's not going to be released, according to Sony, in any form. Now, here's the thing. Well, there's a lot of things, but here's the one thing I want to talk about. Everyone's kind of like trying to wonder who to blame. Like, should we blame the theaters or should we blame Sony? It is said that the theaters pulled out and then Sony pulled out because of it, but it seems more. There's also reports from credible sources like that say Sony was basically telling them to pull out and like your safety is not guaranteed.
It's a mutual ass covering.
Yeah, so that they could get out of it. Because if Sony was like dead set on releasing this thing, they don't actually need the theaters. They could release it on video on demand and or Blu-ray and make
or accidentally, put it on the internet somewhere. Like, I'm sure is not gonna happen ever at all.
It's gonna be, I'm sure it's on the internet by the time we're done talking.
Yeah, it was actually, I think, one of the 5 films released in its entirety before it's been put in theaters.
No, I don't think that was it. Was it?
Wasn't it? I thought there was several movies that the original hack completely.
I think you're both wrong.
It's Annie and Fury and a couple others, but I'm not going to say that I looked for a torrent of it.
You're like, I have firsthand knowledge, Austin. I looked,
but it ain't there. If it's somewhere, I don't see it, and torrents are usually super easy to find.
Didn't the Pirate Bay get taken down like a week ago?
The Pirate Bay's down.
It's back up now in I believe a .cr.
There's hundreds of other torrents.
No, I don't think you guys understand the ramifications of what .cr is. It's Caribbean.
I know.
Leon, if I'm going to torrent something, I'm going to go brand name. Come on, go big or go home. Pirate Bay or bust.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pirate from some knockoff site.
Dr. Tab, come on.
I'm probably gonna just stop talking about torrents right now, so just to cover my own butt, right? But the thing is, as of this moment, as I'm speaking, it is not presently available. It will be because first of all, I think there's going to be a demand for it, and someone will leak it, and second of all, Sony doesn't have good security, so it will be out there by the time you're all listening to this.
I mean, we joke about piracy, Leon, but my personal code has always been if it's not available, then that's the only time it's justifiable.
Well, it's definitely not available.
That's what I'm saying. That's one of the few cases where I would actually not give you a hard time about it, because I'm pretty anti-piracy. But if it's not available, there's no one to give my money to for a thing that exists. Then I don't know. Yeah. That doesn't feel like an ethical breach.
In this day and age, If you're not doing everything that you can to tap the access of the digital market, I mean, for fuck's sakes, you kind of deserve to go out of business. Well, that sounds callous. I know, like, I really know that it does, but I'm just like.
There's a market for everything, especially, like, guys, everyone's already made this.
Especially for guys who really like, a water-enveloped steak.
Oh my god, Johnny. So everyone's already made this.
Sorry.
Everyone's already made this joke, but isn't this movie just as, if not less, like, offensive to North Korea as Team America World Police?
I can only assume that Kim Jong-un, who is a younger fellow, is quicker to anger, whereas Kim Jong-il was crazy, but was just so into popular culture that he was like, I kind of want to see it.
I read somewhere that now that it's been pulled, that movie theaters are, like, scrambling to find movies to fill its place, and people are like, oh, wait a minute, isn't it like the 15th anniversary or something of Team America World Police?
It is actually going to be played in the Draft House, which is a small theater chain, mostly in Texas, but in a few other places. I used to live, like, 10 minutes down the road from the Alamo Draft House, and it is an awesome theater. It's just very cool. For anyone who's never been to one, it's basically dinner theater. You sit there in like a regular movie theater like auditorium, but waiters will walk up to you and say, would you like some food? And typically they have like awesome menus it's like pub food, so it's not fancy, but it's really good, and it's a really great experience. They play a lot of old movies and stuff. It's very cool. So this was a good move on their part, but not unexpected, as they are a very cool chain.
Back on topic, though, I want to ask, like, an important question, okay?
All right.
Mm-hmm.
If it turns out that the interview is the worst movie.
Yo, what if it sucks?
If it is just the shittiest piece of dreck that you have seen hit the screen, is that the best revenge?
I don't know, like, do you think it's going to be bad? Because I thought Pineapple Express was going to be bad, and I starred the same two actors, and I actually love that movie. So I don't know how I feel about the actual quality of the interview.
I'm fond of, apparently the script is written by Seth Rogen and Adam Goldberg, I think. And I'm fond of both of them as comedians. I think I need to be in a certain mood to enjoy their work. But if I want to sit down and watch the interview, I'm expecting Seth Rogen and sorry, yeah, did I say Seth Green? I might have said Seth Green.
I don't think so, but
I'm expecting Seth Rogen and Adam Goldberg work, which I'm happy about. I mean, that's good, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't be like the shittiest clunker.
Johnny, are you suggesting that the movie was bad and was going to fail, so this is all a viral marketing campaign?
I'm not suggesting that at all.
It feels like you were insinuating that.
No.
The movie, whether it's good or bad, the movie is now historically important.
Yeah, it almost created an international incident.
Even if the movie is terrible, people will still remember this movie way more now. And I say remember this movie
as the movie that brought down North Korea.
No, I say remember this movie firmly in the belief that even if it never receives an official release, everyone's going to see this thing.
Yeah. That happens with all kinds of art. Like, this is one of the things that bothers me. I wonder if we're going to get around to the actual topic of whether it was right or wrong to pull it, because obviously people's safety is important, but, you can't just... I feel shitty every time someone bows to a bully, and all I can think of is, like, Salman Rushdie and the Satanic Verses and shit. It's like, people with no sense of humor who get violent about people making art about things that they care about, they're just shit people. Just humans made of shit, and I hate them.
Here's the weird thing. Here's the very weird thing about this. If this is like a homegrown terrorist that has done all of this, that sucks. But if this is actually North Korea doing it, then it feels like, how do I put this? There's that old saying that you don't negotiate with terrorists, and it's not just some bravado statement either, because if you do that, it sets a very terrible precedent.
True, but I mean, I've seen that argument on Twitter, and the rebuttal was that Sony is a private company and not a nation that needs to worry about, maintaining some kind of no negotiation stance. They're just looking out for the shareholders at the end of the day, and they could give a fuck.
That's true.
About anything else.
And that's absolutely true. It's not America doing this, because as we said, we don't have like this state-run stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's a government, a foreign government, doing this to another company. And will this set a precedent? Like I said, if it is North Korea, will they say victory and then let's keep doing shit like this?
This is one of the things about, like people often refer to the culture war, where in the sense that it's like the only real way that society has managed to share ideas properly, because you never really get a chance to just be like, gee, I would really like to sit down with a Sudanese refugee and talk to them about their experiences, because I personally want to know what somebody else's personal experience is with what's going on in the Sudan right now. And that doesn't happen anywhere around the world. You're lucky if you get a chance to actually meet somebody who's been through something that you want to know about, and you ask them about those things, and they are more than happy to tell you about those things. Because a lot of the time, when you ask people questions like, hey, what's it like to deal with racism? Hey, what's it like to deal with mass genocide? People go, fuck, like, why would you ask me that? But the thing about it is, the way that we get this exchange, the way that we get these ideas is often through not necessarily fictionalized, but at least stylized versions of culture. Through music, television, movies, and things like that. And there are many people in the world that are distinctly afraid of American influence.
Well, yes, I mean, North Korea, Hollywood
I should say Western influence, though. I should say Western influence, very specifically.
But they don't make a distinction between culture, art, and government. To them, like, Hollywood is America, America is the White House. It's all one thing.
Exactly. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that by an American offshoot of a company submitting to this, we are now in a situation where a group might see it as being way more beneficial not to threaten America governmentally, diplomatically, militarily, but instead culturally.
Mm-hmm. If you can just threaten artists and corporations, they'll fold a lot easier than governments.
Precisely.
It sucks because, I mean, what else could Sony do from a PR standpoint? They can't just release a movie that might get people killed. That's like the worst possible outcome for a PR person, is to have dead bodies to explain.
Right,
yeah.
but the thing about that is, if they release it video on demand, it's not like the terrorists or the North Korean troops or the whatevers could like track us down into each individual home as us. I heard a rumor that
if you download this movie, we will blow up the internet.
I mean, they say they're not going to release it on video on demand, but I have a feeling that could change, probably will change. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's on Netflix in a year. You know what I'm saying? Wait until it blows over.
By then, so many people would have seen it, though.
That's the CIA wrote Sony an email. Just wait 6 months.
Yeah.
We got some ideas.
I want to say two things, and then we'll try to wrap this up so we can get into the two other topics. This one goes specifically to Johnny. I said on Twitter, recording Wordfunk all about North Korea and Johnny's obsession with meat, and my friend Patrick says, I know where you can get some meat. So, I just want you to know that. Also, weirdest thing in the world. I agree with Mitt Romney about something wholeheartedly. Mitt Romney on his Twitter said, Sony Pictures, don't cave, fight. Release the interview free online globally, but ask viewers for voluntary $5 contribution to fight Ebola. So basically make it a charity event.
Dang, that is a good idea.
That is a damn good idea. Wait, why did you come up with that kind of shit before? People.
When we get to my topic, which will be the last one, I also agreed with someone I didn't want to agree with, and that gave me similar feelings. But I think Johnny's second topic actually dovetails really nicely with this one, because it's about culture wars.
It kind of does.
All right.
Yeah, it kind of does. So
we don't even have to wrap up the first one. We can just segue in, and it'll all be one thing.
Pretty much. I mean, that's more or less it. Because, there have been a lot of people this week calling censorship. About Sony's decision to pull the interview from theaters.
Right up there with ethics and collusion as words people do not understand.
Yeah, it's not censorship for a number of reasons, which I'm not going to explain here because you can Google it.
Or the dictionary, that works fine. You have one in your house?
That too. But another subject upon which people have been declaring censorship affects these things called video games, which I'm sure you've heard of. They are the hot thing in town.
Isn't that the thing that the SJWs ruined?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. We are actively in the process right now. I'm actually double teaming a meeting right now about how and what we're going to go after next. And next it's going to be health packs, because health packs in games shouldn't be metered out to those who are rich enough to get to certain points in the level, and health packs should be universal, and everybody should be invincible in all games at all times because we need to care for them. But in this case, I can't remember if we talked about it on the podcast, but back in October, a Polish game development company called Creative Destructions announced that they were going to make a video game, which shocked everybody.
Did it?
No.
I remember when the trailer came out, all I said is like, this is so dumb that I can't even be mad. Like,
I was suggesting that a Polish company making a video game shocked everybody.
Oh, CD Projekt Red is sad.
I know they are, but I love them dearly. I love them dearly. I love you, CD Projekt Red. I'm sorry that The Witcher's delayed again, but I accept it. I know that you're going to bring me something amazing.
Female playable character. Woo.
Yeah, that's cool too. But on a side. Creative Destruction announced a game called Hatred, because why wouldn't you name a game something that you'd scribble on the front of your 10th grade math textbook while you're like listening to some super serious 3 inches of blood and being like, fucking numbers. So Hatred, while not really that far off base in terms of like what people name video games, decided to kind of like do away with a lot of the veneer that we get in video games, where it's like, you're killing everybody. Why? For justice?
Yeah.
And they just basically decided that they were going to make a game about a really angry man with greasy long hair and a trench coat. Stop me if this is sounding familiar, and a cliche that you as a gamer have tried to avoid since the late 90s. Who decides that he's done with the world, and therefore the only sensible thing to do is buy a bunch of guns and kill everybody, because, if you're done with the world, go for the more labor-intensive solution instead of just buying the one gun and offing yourself. So yeah, it's basically, and they self-describe it as a genocidal mass murder simulator, which is obviously not, because it's a top-down perspective, and nobody fucking makes a simulator from a top-down perspective unless it's like Pass the Salt, the game.
It's isometric postal.
Yes.
You just wasted like 2 minutes explaining it, but it's isometric postal.
But the thing is that the original Postal 1 was actually isometric. So really, it's Postal with slightly better graphics.
Yeah. And it's not, there's more to the story, but the first outrage was just that it existed, and people were like, oh no, a violent video game. And it's like, yeah, like all of them.
Yeah, and that was the most interesting thing about the outrage, was that everybody the outrage wasn't, violence! The outrage was, oh my god, what a cynical attempt to cash grab on the controversy of violence. Like, everybody spotted it from, 1,000 miles away. But they went, Creative Destructions, and this past week, I believe on Monday, it might have been late Monday, depending on where you are in the world, they finally put Hatred up on Steam Greenlight. If you're not aware of Greenlight, it's basically a system where developers submit their game to Steam, and then users electively can decide to go into Greenlight. Sorry?
I would say Steam Greenlight's actually a really clever satire of democracy.
It really is. So you as a Steam user can decide to go into Greenlight and look at whatever anybody who has submitted is offering, and then vote on whether or not if the game should be on Steam, but if you would buy it, if you are not interested in it, or if you be like, tell me more, or I'm going to wait on this one, right? So they went up. The studio, Creative Destructions, said yesterday on Tuesday, when we're recording this, Wednesday we're recording this, sorry. So yesterday, Tuesday, I'm talking too much, said that they reached number 7 on, of the 2,000 games that are on Steam Greenlight. When, boom, gone. Got pulled. Doug Lombardi, who I'm not sure his specific title with Valve, but often is the man who comes to the mic to say, geez, said that just by looking at it, it was something that they weren't interested in selling on Steam, and as such have pulled it from Greenlight. This sparked an outrage, both from people who really, really wanted to kill a bunch of people, because obviously there are no games that let you do that, and for people concerned for the concept of censorship and free expression and free speech and free market, I guess.
Now, I'm not 100%. I was going to say before you get there, I'm not 100% sure, but does Poland have comprehensive freedom of speech laws? Because people just assume the internet is America, but
it isn't.
It's not, actually. Everyone who uses the internet is still in their own country.
There are filters that change every neighbor, honor, flavor, favorite to add an extra U when you get to Canada. So all those American sites. It was one of the first filters that we had to bypass when I started writing for Blistered Thumbs, because there was always a U when I submitted flavor, favorite, honor.
Color.
Thank you, Austin.
I just always bother me when people say freedom of speech on the internet, because you have no idea what country I'm in, Like, I am in America, but what if I wasn't? That means nothing to me. But anyway, go on.
I mean, but there's something to be said for the internet being the echo chamber for, ideals, where you could just, show up on the internet with a movie like one about, comedically assassinating the despot of another country, and just being like, look what we did, even though it doesn't agree with your life view. Anyways, the twist in this story is that literally a day later, which is today, incidentally, the day after yesterday, Hatred shows up on Greenlight again. And what's more is Creative Destructions noted on their Facebook page that there was an apology from Gabe Newell, where he was like, yeah, I heard we pulled this. I wasn't fully informed. I asked around the office, and I felt that your game was pulled from Greenlight without sufficient reasons. So it's back on. We're sorry. Best of luck to you.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different angles to attack this from. First of all, obviously, is the claim of censorship, but Valve is not a government. They are under no obligation to sell anything from anyone without their own desire to do so. Not censorship.
Furthermore, their terms of service dictate that they don't want any offensive content. And a lot of the outrage came that it was like, oh, but what's offensive? That's a nebulous term. Of course, they didn't use the word nebulous. So how are we supposed to tell whether or not, like, our game about you having sex with children is offensive?
Yeah. Well, first of all,
I'm inflating the argument, obviously.
there are plenty of super violent video games on Steam. Actually, I think it's funny, when it first got pulled from Greenlight, the developers released a statement saying that Hatred was a reaction to how colorful and politically correct games are today, which made me laugh because I'm thinking of all of, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Assassin's Creed, Shadow of Mordor. All of the AAA, Grand Theft Auto, all the AAA series that dominate the sales chart are all fucking gritty, violent, murder fun houses. And so to pretend like we're living in a land of all Barbie pony adventure games is ludicrous to begin with.
I never knew how many shades of brown and gray there were until I started playing video games.
So that's just ludicrous to begin with. But then you have the entire thing where the creative director or whatever, the guy who's in charge of Hatred is affiliated with some kind of neo-Nazi group in Poland and stuff. There's all kinds of that shit coming out. The game's called Hatred, for God's sakes.
Yeah. I mean, it's not shy.
There's no ambiguity about their goals. It's a mass murder simulator. But it is totally their right to make it. If they want to make it, they can make it. I have no problem with that. If that's how they want to express themselves, that's fine. But Valve doesn't have to stock it.
No.
It's the same with the Grand Theft Auto 5 and Kmart Australia situation. No one said that Rockstar wasn't allowed to make Grand Theft Auto. No one forced them to change it, but Kmart doesn't have to sell it.
It's Target, not Kmart.
Whatever.
No, it's Target. It's Target and Kmart.
It was Target first, and then Kmart.
Target first, and then Kmart. They both have stopped selling Grand Theft Auto 5 in Australia. Although there's a really great article about the Australian games economy and the position that sex workers have in their society. And
we talked about that a little bit before. It's a uniquely cultural thing. They didn't even have the R18 rating until recently. And that stuff.
You can still get it everywhere there.
Yeah.
It was just 2 stores that are kind of marketing to families and aren't everywhere like they are in America. You don't turn around the corner from Target and walk into another Target.
Yeah. Like the Lewis Black Starbucks.
The Starbucks, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
It's time for a cup of Joe.
But yeah, this Hatred thing is basically just Grand Theft Auto 5 Part 2, where clearly there are elements that are disturbing and that some people would find offensive, and I have no problem with those feelings or the feelings of the people who think that they should be allowed to make it. Those people have equally valid feelings. But this is not a censorship issue at all, first of all. No. And second of all, the game looks like shit. It just doesn't look good.
If it was a censorship issue, then I'm amazed that so many people are, leading the charge for Hatred to be on Steam Greenlight, and yet not defending my project to greenlight mayonnaise. Because I want Steam to greenlight mayonnaise. I want to buy my mayonnaise off of Steam.
I can see. I'm just gonna ignore that mayonnaise.
Sell mayonnaise. Okay, all right, fine.
I'm just gonna say, I could see definitely, Gabe Newell just, in his office doing whatever, and someone walks in, and they're like, hey, did you hear about this thing? And he's like, what'd you guys do now? And clearly, this wasn't a corporate policy. This is, I don't remember the man's name, you said it earlier, but somebody at Steam.
Doug Lombardi.
Yeah. Him and his team, made the judgment call that this was inappropriate, and they were overruled. I don't have any problem with that besides the double message it sends, that, Valve doesn't really know what they're doing with their moderation policy. I think it's an indictment of Greenlight in a lot of ways, and I think it definitely is damning to the large section of the gamer population who so fervently defended this kind of gross thing.
Well, I got in a discussion, a pretty rabid discussion with my brother the other day over Twitter, which I hate doing, but he's my brother, so I'm kind of I have to respond to you. I don't want to ignore you and look like a dick.
You shared too much genetic material for me to ignore you.
Pretty much, and he posits that their requirements, their terms are way too formless. Saying that something is offensive, it's okay, let's have a discussion about what's offensive.
Yeah.
Is it the violence? No. Is it the intent? Maybe. We don't have access to Valve deciding that this violence is acceptable and this violence is unacceptable, but we are really not allowed to have, we shouldn't have more transparency from them. We shouldn't have more concrete terms, because if they are indeed moving to a more developer-controlled open store where you can just kind of be like, hey, this is the game I want to publish, then they need every inch they can get to cover their asses. And if that protector is when they say offensive, then when you submit your game, you are submitting to the possibility that an arbitrator that you don't know will have to apply an invariably subjective evaluation of how offensive your game is. Because we are all acceptable of things that other people find offensive. I loved Saints Row 4. I find it offensive that governments want to regulate a woman's ability to have an abortion.
It reminds me, there's a Kurt Vonnegut story where someone's trying to come up with the definition of offensive or something that's indecent. Indecent is what it is. And he spends forever agonizing over it. And at the end he decides it's, if you can see pubic hair, it's offensive. It's indecent. That's the line. If no pubic hair, not indecent. It's really arbitrary and culturally bound as well. Like I said earlier, this something that's offensive in Poland may not be offensive in America. Valve's an American company. Who knows? I think it either
talking to any women that listen to the podcast, women or girls, you walking around without your face covered is offensive to some people.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. So them legally trying to protect their asses by saying, oh, we're not accepting any offensive material is a catch-all net that the company needs to keep, functioning legally.
Yeah.
It's in there. The thing is that it's in their same right to bring it back. For Gabe to just be like, no, bad idea. Let's bring it back. Put it back on. That's the same thing, though. That's them being able to say, no, you know what? There's really, nothing overly offensive about this. Maybe they were trying to avoid controversy and accidentally created more, and then they were like, oh, uh-oh.
Like I said, I don't even think Gabe was consulted. I assume he found out later, like I said in the statement, and he's like, I mean, if I can speak for somebody else here, I assume he grew up in the age when Mortal Kombat and Doom were vilified. The parental advisory stickers were going on, music and stuff, and he was just like, fuck that, they can do what they want. I hate to side with people who are maybe neo-Nazis, but if whatever, right? I don't agree with it.
It still looks like bum, though.
It does. It looks terrible, and I would never pay money for it. But they're allowed to make it, and if Valve doesn't have a problem selling it, then they can sell it. I don't know. The whole thing is it's ridiculous.
I am so surprised that the proceeds have elicited such enthusiasm and vitriol on both sides. Because it was my response was when they pulled it, I was like, well, Valve can sell what they want. Otherwise, they would sell my mayonnaise.
Yeah, they're just as free to pull it as they are to sell it. The actual, objectionable shit that I saw on my timeline that I was like, this is where the stand needs to be taken, was people in the Steam forums asking for, Columbine mods or, NPCs of, Anita Sarkeesian so they could hunt and murder her. Those people are sick and need to have their Steam accounts suspended.
Yeah, that's some pretty objectionable content. Because you're actively getting into somebody's headspace. You tell me that somebody makes a model of Anita Sarkeesian in a game, you tell me that she's not gonna get sent video after video after video after video of people killing her.
Yeah.
That's fucking harassment.
So, I don't know if you want to open that particular can of worms, but there is a notable hashtag that has been very vocally in favor of hatred and everything it stands for, and they are very happy that it's been reinstated on Greenlight. And I think Greenlight may need to be surgically removed from the equation. It's done more harm than good, I think.
It was a sloppy entrance. Greenlight's appearance into the gaming sphere was badly negotiated by Valve, and it continues to kind of languish. You know,
it's not a bad idea. Steam was too closed to platform, but now it's too open, and it's filled with early access bullshit and not half-working stolen games. Remember the War Z?
Yep. That wasn't even. I'm not even sure that was greenlit though.
Yeah, I don't even know how it got on there, but the fact that it was on there at all.
Now. It's what is it? It's Contagion Survivor Stories, Infestation Survivor Stories.
I don't give a shit what it's called now.
I just want to know. I just want to know what it's called so that people avoid it. Infestation Survivor Stories. That's what it's called now. Right. Don't buy it. Don't buy it for $1. Don't buy it for 75 cents. Don't buy it for 50 cents. If I walked up to you on the street and said, "Hey man, give me a dime and I'll shit in your hand," that's a better deal.
Leon, when are we talking over you? I apologize. Were you trying to get a word in there edgewise?
Yeah, just laughing.
Okay. Did you have any thoughts about censorship and video games or Doom or Mortal Kombat?
Air quotes censorship. Air quotes.
Yeah.
Just the concept.
Yeah, alright, look, here's the thing about censorship in video games. Valve deciding... Alright, let me go back in time. The United States Congress...
Please edit a TARDIS noise in there.
The United States Congress having hearings about video game violence and what they need to do about it bordered on at least trying to censor video games, because although they couldn't really do anything, but that was basically the start or the movement and an attempt at censorship, because that's the government trying to do something. When Arnold Schwarzenegger was behind something that would be a government law against putting certain video games on the shelf, that's censorship, because that's the government doing something. You could say censorship in broad strokes means anything where you try to block something from being seen, and that's in a way almost technically true, but it's not what people mean when they say censorship. A company saying, "I don't want to sell that," you could call that censorship, but it's really just it's like me saying, "I don't want to watch Glee in my house." It's my house, and I can turn it off if I want to, and not watch Glee in my house.
You're censoring it, Leon.
Right, and that is the same level of censorship as a private company like Valve saying, "I don't want to sell that. It's my company. I just don't want to."
I don't think I can beat Johnny's mayonnaise example.
Greenlight Johnny's mayonnaise.
We were going to talk about the torture report. Because that was a horrible thing that happened. Not that we learned about it, but that it happened. The fact that we learned about it is a good thing, because then we can say, look at what horrible things we did. Maybe we shouldn't do that again. It's weird that, when the torture report came out, I thought, oh, well, everyone's gonna flip their shit and be really embarrassed. But no, the same people who believed in it before, are saying it's fine now, as they did at the time. And the same people who said torture is wrong are saying it now, just as then. Absolutely nothing has changed now that we know a bit more about it.
I would say earlier when I said that I agreed with someone I don't like to agree with, John McCain. You guys know that guy.
Yeah.
He was brutally tortured in Vietnam and is permanently crippled. I'm trying to get my mind around this. He is anti-torture. Can you imagine that someone who's been tortured doesn't particularly agree with the method? And he gave a great speech outlining that, and I agreed 100% with him, which is not something I am comfortable doing most of the time. But I feel like it shouldn't need to be stated that torture is bad. Yeah. Is that a radical opinion?
The weird thing, and someone perhaps wittier than myself, said it.
Thank you, Leon.
No. said it best a few days ago. I can't remember who it was, but this person said, the debate over whether or not torture is an effective method of interrogation should go out the window with the same argument of, is slavery good for the economy? That's not the point. we can make an argument. We can talk about whether or not something is effective or not. That's not what we're really talking about. We're talking about whether or not it is right or whether it's right or wrong.
Even if it had a 100% success rate, like it was just a magic torture button you pushed and 100% accurate info popped out, like I would still have a problem with it. That's not a defense of it in my opinion.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Here's what I always say about moral issues. If you're wondering whether or not something is right, watch the Star Trek episode on that topic. There's one on everything. There is one on torture. It's one of the best two-parters on.
There are 4 lights.
Yeah, exactly. Chain of Command, part 1 and part 2. Especially part 2 is more about torture. And Picard says he's looking at this guy and he's like, torture isn't a very good method of getting really accurate information, and the guy's like, I'm gonna keep torturing you, and because he's a Cardassian, and that's what they do. So I don't think we should take our cue from
spoilers, Leon. I haven't seen that episode yet.
I don't think we should take our cue from Cardassians, and that's how I feel about politics this week.
Just generally don't take your cues from villains.
No, yeah, exactly. If the Cardassians think it's an awesome idea, it's probably the worst idea ever. So that's how I feel. We have to leave in like a minute. Do you guys want to say? Oh, one more thing. The U.S. Has gone on record saying that North Korea is centrally involved in this, in all of this, and then Wired said no. So I don't know, and that's
no one knows for sure right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of politics and taking cues from villains, do you guys, I don't know how closely you follow American politics, but recently, or a couple months ago, the famous pundit Bill O'Reilly outlined his plan to deal with ISIS over in the Middle East, and it was identical, his plan, to the villain's plan from Metal Gear Solid 4.
I haven't actually seen or played Metal Gear Solid 4, but I can only assume it's super convoluted and weird.
It's just that to raise like an army of mercenaries with no accountability and let them loose, basically. That's the villain's plan for Metal Gear Solid. Actually, a couple of them. But that was his plan.
That never ends badly, like I remember back in the 1980s, I wish that in Afghanistan there had been some kind of army of rebels or, I don't know, some people that America could have used to fight off the Russians. Oh, goddamn. If only they could have supplied arms to, I don't know, let's call them a group like Al-Smida or something like that, right?
Okay. We have to go. Last words before I hit the stop button.
I don't care how funny you think it is. Do not tie it to your genitals and film it. Don't do it.
Wait, what? What specifically? Anything?
Anything.
Anything? Why would you?
Anything.
All right. Johnny, your Christmas present is coming. And on that note, I have to go. Austin, you want to say anything before we go?
Merry Christmas. Are we having the episode next week?
Yeah. Wait. When is? Oh. Well, I
Christmas
guess
Eve.
Because it's right on Christmas Eve. We could I don't know, have some mulled wine or hot spiced rum and
what am I doing on
sit around the campfire and cajole each other with I don't know, weird homoerotic stories that we were too ashamed to tell each other during the rest of the year. You guys had a year like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly like that. Almost eerily like that.